Hi there, I'm Grace McNab. I teach music theory at Capilano University. I'd like to share some of my ideas about that subject with you, and particularly musical form and ways in which we can enrich our study of that and keep the music very much in music theory. Okay, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how doodling when you're listening to music can actually become a pretty rigorous way of studying musical form. I call it organic transcription. And part of the reason for the word organic is because due to the left, right, and increasingly condensed move toward the center, there happens to be, I guess, a plant-like look to a lot of kinds of diagrams that come out when you doodle to music, especially if you think harmonically like I do, where the one chord tends to be on the one hand, the five on the other, and then debates and changes of key tend to echo that in condensed ways. So my first attempts to do this tended to look like a combination of musical notation and organic notation. Got a little more formal with the help of Adobe Illustrator, and I guess we've heard Beethoven's Fifth a lot tonight. It wouldn't be bad to listen to it one more time. Da 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 dim ba da da dum da 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 dum ba da da dum ba da da dum ya da da dum ba da da dum ya da da dum ba da 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 ya da da dum bum. The game changer. Ba. And it's just a happy coincidence they all start looking like they really are growing. Sometimes you can do colorful things where you decide that the one chord will be yellow, the five chord will be red, and anything else like a two chord might be blue, and you can see what types of proportions there are, how much time is spent on different chords. That, by the way, is the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto last movement theme. Won't play the whole thing right now, but all of what you just heard was the yellow and red portion that gets repeated, and then you move into an in-depth B section, which has some blue things coming in out of the blue, as it were. I'm going to bypass a few of these things, and I'd like to celebrate Beethoven's Fifth as a fern. It's possible to diagram your way all the way through that symphony with a simple rule of one chord's on the right, five chords on the left, and phrases that are questions or answers over a larger span are branches to each side, and this is just an example of what the exposition of the symphony might look like. Of course, it's not very helpful to anyone but the one who drew it, but you can eventually develop your own system of diagramming form. This particular example moves from sort of a Mozartian poem that simply talks about the statement being made, the response, the digressions, and the cadence. It's the same Mozart that we listened to earlier with the colorful lateral diagram. You can turn those words into slurs. You can turn those slurs into beats. You can turn those beats into streams. And finally, by the end of it, if you turn it all upside down, you can turn the whole darn thing into kind of a counting plant. And I call it organic relief. In 6 stages, I'm going to move from a poem based upon a Mozart theme to a sort of an organic piece of notation. I call it going from word to leaf. And in a certain way, you have 3 things here. Now, we have music, we have speech making, and we have organic life, the way it evolves bilaterally and recursively as new growth comes into the middle. So here's our poem. And it really is a kind of a poem about music. It starts by saying sort of, we can count on this with certainty. And with absolute certainty, we can count on this. However, this can happen, or that, or this, or that. And in the end, we end up having to decide whether the thing we thought over here or there was true. So it's a kind of an odd poem. It takes on this shape, though, in terms of its lengths, with a statement, a response, a series of fragments, and a cadence or an ending which comes down to a point. So that's the shape. If we add slurs to it and we write the words over the slurs, it starts to look a little bit more lively and musical. If we keep on organizing those in progressive ways, we can finally arrive at something that actually ends up looking like this. So here we're going to fern our way through some Mozart. The pacing of this, just to get ready when the music starts, will be this speed. Statement, da 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 da. Response, ba da 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 bum. Fragment, da 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 dum. Fragment, da 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 dum. Fragment, da 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 dum. Fragment, da 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 da. And then the scales will take off into that tapering top end. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Statement. Response. Fragments. Fragment. 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 Ending. And you can see that splitting off near the end in the final bit. Mozart, hair splitting down to a point.